Someone introduces themselves to you, and you hear their name clearly right away. And 5 seconds later, it's completely gone. Not blurry, not on the tip of your tongue, just gone, like it was never said at all. And this happens to almost everyone every single day. Most people assume it means their memory is bad, but scientists have a completely different explanation. Scientists have found a specific reason why names disappear faster than almost any other type of information. And once you understand what's actually happening inside your brain, you can actually do something to fix it. Let's start with what makes names fundamentally different from almost every other word you encounter. Most words you hear carry meaning that connects automatically to other things you already know inside your brain. If someone says the word dog, your brain instantly links it to every dog you have ever seen in your life. It connects to the sound of barking and the feel of fur and the idea of a loyal pet at home. That single word lands on a huge web of existing knowledge and hooks onto all of it immediately. A name like Daniel or Priya or Marcus is what researchers call an arbitrary label with no meaning attached. There is nothing inherently Daniel-like about a person named Daniel, and nothing the sound tells you about him. The name is just a sound attached to a face with no natural bridge connecting the sound to the person. And your brain is far better at holding on to things that connect to existing knowledge than isolated information. This is sometimes called the Baker-Baker paradox, and it is based on a real experiment researchers actually ran. They showed participants a photograph of a person and told one group that the person's occupation was baker. They told a second group that the person's last name was Baker, the exact same word given to two groups. Later, when shown the photo again, far more participants remembered the occupation than they remembered the surname. The word baker as a job connected to ovens and bread and flour and aprons and the smell of a bakery. The word baker as a name connected to absolutely nothing at all, just a label floating with no anchor. This is exactly what happens every single time you meet someone new at a party or a meeting or anywhere. Their name arrives in your brain with zero supporting connections and has almost nothing to grab onto. But there is actually a second problem happening at the exact same moment you hear someone's name for the first time. Right, when someone tells you their name, your brain is already doing something else entirely and cannot fully focus. It is scanning their face and reading their expression and taking in the setting around the two of you. It is preparing the words you are about to say back while managing the social pressure of a first impression. Researchers call this attentional overload, and it happens in almost every single introduction you have ever experienced. You are not actually focused on the name in that moment because you are managing an entire social situation. The name is just one small piece, competing for your limited attention against everything else happening simultaneously. Most people do not even fully process the name the first time it is said during an introduction. They register that a name was spoken without truly encoding the actual sound of it into their memory at all. This is why you can forget a name 2 seconds after hearing it and feel awkward asking the person to repeat, because some part of you knows you technically heard the name already, even though it never got properly stored. You did hear it, but you just never gave your brain a real chance to actually process and store it correctly. So how do you fix this, and what do researchers say actually works when tested in controlled studies? The first technique researchers consistently recommend is something called the immediate repeat. And it is simple, saying the person's name back to them right after they introduce themselves, instead of just saying, "Nice to meet you." Instead of just saying hi, you say, "Hi Priya," or "Nice to meet you Daniel," with their actual name included. This forces your brain to process the name a second time instead of letting it vanish completely unprocessed. One single repetition is often enough to dramatically improve how well you hold on to the name afterward. The second technique is called elaborative encoding, which means connecting the name to something that already has meaning. If you meet someone named Daniel who works in engineering, picture a famous Daniel you already know from somewhere. Or imagine his name written on a document or a blueprint sitting on the table directly in front of him. The connection does not need to be logical or make perfect sense as long as it exists somewhere in your brain. Because connected information is far stickier and more retrievable than isolated information every single time without exception. The third technique researchers found effective is visual association, based specifically on the sound of the name itself. If you meet someone named Rose, spend half a second picturing an actual rose with petals and color and detail. If you meet someone named Victor, picture a trophy or a finish line tape being broken at the end of a race. Your brain is dramatically better at storing vivid images than it is at storing pure abstract sound on its own. Giving the name a visual anchor transforms it from a floating sound into something with real shape and texture, which makes it far easier to retrieve later when you are trying to remember who you met at that event. The fourth technique is the simplest one of all and requires almost no effort beyond basic awareness in conversation. Just use the name multiple times naturally during the first conversation you have with that person after meeting them. Each time you say it, your brain performs another retrieval attempt, and each successful retrieval strengthens the memory. Say it when you agree with something they mention, and say it when you ask them a follow-up question. People who naturally use a new name 2 or 3 times in a first conversation remember it clearly days later, while people who only hear it once at the introduction often cannot recall it even an hour after the meeting ends. None of these techniques require you to have an exceptional memory or any special skill that most people lack. They are about giving an arbitrary piece of information the kind of support structure your brain actually needs. Your brain is not broken when a name disappears 5 seconds after you hear it for the very first time. It is doing exactly what it was built to do by prioritizing meaning over arbitrary labels in every situation. For most of human history, remembering someone's name mattered far less than reading whether they were a threat. Those signals are what your brain evolved to capture instantly, and the name was almost secondary to all of that. Your brain is still running that ancient program every single time you meet someone new in the modern world, and the name keeps losing out to everything else, competing for your limited attention in that crucial moment. The next time you forget someone's name almost instantly after hearing it, remind yourself of what is actually happening. It is not a character flaw, and it is not a sign of a failing memory getting worse as you get older. It is a sign that the name arrived completely alone with nothing attached to it to help it stick. Give it something to attach to by repeating it back and connecting it to something meaningful with a visual image. And it stops disappearing the moment after you hear it, because now it has somewhere to anchor inside your brain. Do you forget names instantly, or are you one of the rare people who somehow always remembers everyone they meet? Drop it in the comments and let us know your experience with this. Subscribe to Whisper Files for more things your brain never told you.